All right, so we are on chapter 11. The stone floor was cold. Gregor lay on his side, holding a small mirror by the handle. He was trying to read the prophecy of blood, but it wasn't easy. I've already got this thing memorized, he said. We know, Gregor, but Nerissa and I feel it is important for you to examine the original, said Vicus. There are clues you may pick up from the way it is written. So Gregor peered back into the mirror. The first two prophecies that had involved him had been carved in big letters right in the middle of the walls of the stone room that held all of Sandwich's visions. This third one was almost impossible to decipher. In the first place, the prophecy of blood was on the floor, which might have been okay if it wasn't crammed into a corner. Secondly, the letters were very tiny and had a lot of confusing curlicues and junk coming off of them. Then, of course, the thing was written backwards. No matter how he twisted and turned his body, or positioned the light, or squinted to make out the letters, Gregor could never really get a clear shot of it. He seemed to spend more time looking at his own face than at the prophecy. When his mirror arm began to cramp, he finally gave up. What's the deal with this thing? It's like Sandwich didn't even want us to be able to read it, said Gregor. He did want us to read it, Gregor, or he never would have written it, said Vicus. The old man knelt down and rubbed his hand over the prophecy. But Nerissa believes he purposely made it difficult to read. Yeah, why's that, Nerissa? Asked Gregor, sitting up to look at her. When Laksa had disappeared in the rat's tunnels, Nerissa, as the last living member of the royal family, had been crowned queen. Many people had opposed her coronation because she had visions of the future that made her seem crazy. Others simply doubted if she had the physical strength for the job. At present, she was curled up in a cloak on the floor, leaning against the wall for support. Now that she was queen, she was better dressed, and her hair was neatly pinned on top of her head. But she was as bony and tremulous as ever. Because the prophecy itself is difficult to read, its meaning, it is hard to understand, said Nerissa. There's only one part of it that really seems confusing to me, said Gregor. The first stanza said there would be a plague. Okay, it was here. The third stanza said to bring Gregor in boots. Okay, they were here. The fifth stanza said the warm bloods had to find the cure. Okay, they were going to try. The seventh stanza said you do it or you die. Okay, they knew that. But those words that appeared in the second, fourth, sixth, and eighth stanzas, the repeating stanza, that was the confusing part. And this is what it is. Turn and turn and turn again. You see the what, but not the when. Remedy and wrong entwine, and so they form a single vine. Turn and turn and turn again, said Gregor. What's that about? Before I burden you with several centuries of scholarly opinion, what is your interpretation of it, Gregor? Said Vicus. Gregor considered the stanza again, rolling the words around in his mind. Well, it sounds to me like Sandwich is trying to tell us we're wrong. Like whatever we think is happening, it's not. Yes, not only wrong now, but as we turn and turn, we are still not seeing the truth, said Nerissa. So, if we're wrong, then why are we doing anything, said Gregor. Why are we even going to the Vineyard of Eyeballs or whatever it's called? Because the alternative is to do nothing, said Vicus, and a journey is indicated. We must go to the cradle to find the cure. It seems likely that the single vine would grow in a vineyard, does it not? So we go, and perhaps along the way we unravel this stanza as well. When you say we, do you mean you and me? Because you're coming with me this time. Or because you're coming with me this time? Asked Gregor hopefully. Vicus smiled. No, Gregor, I confess I was using a more general we. I cannot go, but if it is any consolation, Sullivet is planning to travel with you. Well, that's something, said Gregor. He'd rather have Vicus to help unravel the prophecy, but he knew Sullivet would be better at fighting. And if this place were as dangerous as everybody thought, he would need her. And Ripred, is he coming? He says he would not miss it for all the world, said Vicus. Gregor felt his heart lift a little. With both Ripred and Sullivet along, they might just make it. An Underlander knocked on the door and announced that they were needed. The rats and crawlers must have returned, said Vicus. We are going to continue the meeting within the walls of the palace. Come, let us go. As they started down the hallway, Gregor tried to give the hand mirror back to Nerissa. Keep it, she said. You may have need of it again. He stuck the mirror in his back pocket absent-mindedly. The moment they crossed the threshold, he recognized the place. How could he forget? He took in the stone bleachers that rose up around a stage that sat right in the middle of the circular room. On that stage, that was where he and Eris had made the vows that bonded them together. Hold on, I think Jason just popped in. Hi, Jason. You're muted, but you can listen. And we're already on the second chapter for today, but you can hang out. All right. Now the stage was empty, but the bleachers held clusters of creatures. The human council occupied one section of seats. The bats sat to their right, the roaches to their left, and the rats were milling around the benches directly across the stage from them. Vicus and Nerissa went to join the humans, but Gregor had that odd feeling he'd had in the cafeteria one day when both Angelina and Larry had been sick and missed school. He did not know where to sit. Not with the rats, that was for sure. But he didn't much like the Regalian Council, which was probably still thinking about tossing him off a cliff for treason. The bats had made Eris's life miserable by shunning him. Finally, Gregor went over and sat with the roaches. They were the only ones he really felt comfortable with. Vicus opened the meeting by greeting everyone formally. Then he got right down to business. So, it seems the journey to the Vineyard of Eyes becomes more urgent with each passing minute. We must begin at once. The proposed members of the quest are currently Gregor and Boots, as the warrior and the princess are called for. Nike will be their flyer, also providing us with a backup princess in case we have misinterpreted Boots's role. Sullivet and her bond, Ajax, complete the humans and flyers. Ripred, Mange, and Lapblood will represent the Gnars. And as Sandwich specifically mentions the crawlers, Temp has valiantly offered his services. We don't really have to drag that crawler along with us, do we? Said Mange. I suppose we can always eat him if the supplies run low, said Lapblood. There was laughter from some of the bats and humans at the comment. They were always making fun of the roaches. Temp said nothing but gave a slight tremor of fear at Lapblood's comment. Gregor locked eyes with the rat. Or maybe we'll eat you. I've never had rat, but with the right sauce, who knows? Only one creature was laughing now. Ripred. Well, at least the trip isn't going to be dull. At present, hissed Lapblood, there is no trip. We have yet to be convinced that it is to our advantage. The council has agreed to open the fishing grounds to the west, said Vicus. That should provide the Gnars with enough food. And the yellow powder? Asked Mange. To kill the fleas? There was only silence from the humans. Then Gregor thought he heard Vicus sigh. Like maybe it's Sullivet's job to say something about that, and she isn't, so Vicus is like, ugh. No powder, no deal, said Lapblood. What? Was the whole quest going to fall through because the humans wouldn't send the rats flea powder? Was it really so much to ask? Gregor thought of the purple bumps bursting, oozing out pus and blood. He sprang to his feet and shouted at the council. Send them the powder! Geez! Have you seen Eris? Have you seen what the plague does? No matter how much you hate the rats, do you really want them to die like that? His question hung in the air a long time before anyone answered. You have a very forgiving heart, Gregor the Overlander, said Sullivet. It wasn't true. Maybe Gregor didn't want the rats to die such a gruesome death. He thought of the expression, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But he had not forgiven them for his father, for Tick, for Twitch-Tip, for Aurora, or for Luxa. He had a whole list of things he would never forgive the rats for. No, I don't, said Gregor bitterly, but I've got a mom and a bond with the plague. Your hospital is starting to fill up. We need the rats to find the cure. So what's it going to be, Sullivan? All right, so that's the end of chapter 11. So tomorrow, tomorrow I'll read again at 10 o'clock. But then not on Thursday, but I'll send that reminder out. Okay. All right. So I was just looking at your, excuse me, your, I've got